It's Tuesday, July 16th, 2019, and isn't today Bastille Day? Oh, that was the 14th, or Freedom Day or whatever in France. I don't know why that matters.
It doesn't. And actually, we have two stories, why France is awful.
Yes, why are we not starting with a Jeep pie?
You know, I thought about that, but I figured Trump is the bigger name, right? Like, that gets more clicks if you start with Trump. Actually, I don't think that would affect it at all. But Trump does deliver clicks. That's been proven. He basically reinvigorated the dying news media. And now he's going to save social media.
We will not let them get away with it. Trump threatens social media ahead of the White House summit. So this article, it's about the social media bias and how, like, the companies that run social media have a certain agenda. And voices that fall in line with that agenda are okay, but voices that do not fall in line with that agenda, maybe some things happen to those accounts.
Like they get banned?
But it's really, like, there's a deeper issue here because, I mean, look at YouTube lately. They've gone insane. Just, capture the flag content and, like, honest-to-goodness InfoSec content, all of that is just blanket banned. There's a bunch of lawyers on YouTube that, like, make funny videos or videos about lawyery stuff. And even though they're following all the rules, their videos are demonetized or they get strikes. And it's fascinating because it's like, look, there's a lawyer on your platform making, like, honest-to-goodness, like, editorial and journalistic content. And YouTube's just like, nope, not touching that with a 10-foot pole.
Well, it's obvious. YouTube doesn't want anything that any advertiser could possibly get any backlash for. And in this day and age, that's a tiny, tiny percentile of any kind of content because everybody's offended by something, right?
So the only solution is to do what Spotify's doing and basically kick everybody off and only deal with middlemen who vet people.
Yeah, well, I mean, that's going to destroy your platform. Now, what Trump did was neither of those things. What Trump did was he rounded up all the pro-Trump people who had been silenced or banned and invited them to the White House. And he didn't invite any of the heads of the social media companies or any of the other point of view. I don't know what was accomplished with this.
Nothing. It would be like the world's largest echo chamber.
But he didn't. The interesting thing that he mentioned here was that if the social media companies didn't get their act together and stop silencing conservatives, then in 6 years, they're going to have a huge problem, which I think alludes to maybe Trump throwing his resources behind some kind of social media thing when he gets out of the office.
That would probably be hilarious.
Well,
just to
6
watch
years from now, do you think any of the social media platforms are still going?
No.
Maybe.
I think the TikTok will have taken over the world and nothing will be relevant anymore.
Aren't they doing poorly?
No, they're doing amazing. One of our stories talked about how amazing they were doing.
So, yeah. Oh,
the ad has taken over.
no, is that...
Yeah, it pushed the page down.
No, which button is the topic change?
One.
That's what did that.
That's weird.
Okay. I've completely lost track of what I was saying. Oh, yeah, Donald Trump. We got another story about him. So I think someone sat him down and gave him a very, very top-level brief overview of cryptocurrency. He's against it.
He has blasted Facebook's Libra and demands strict regulation. Unregulated crypto assets can facilitate unlawful behavior, Trump warns. And it's like, nobody tell him about Bitcoin.
Well, he did mention Bitcoin. And he's also against that.
Yeah.
He does not like the cryptocurrencies. Of course, he's a big pro-dollar guy. He wants the dollar to be stronger. Trade wars and so forth.
A lot of trade, little bit more on the trade wars side, a little bit less on the dollar side, but okay.
Yeah. But someone who maybe knows a little bit more about how money works. Oh, Trump, his one of his great comments was, it's like, it's backed by nothing. Do you think he understands fractional reserve lending?
No.
I mean,
there is not a chance he understands.
He went to Wharton, right?
Yeah.
Do you think that they have to cover that at some point, right?
No, it's been so long ago. And it's like it's golf binge fueled haze.
We were on fractional reserve lending in the 70s. Is that when he went to school? Or?
Yeah. So I mean, no. So he has
anyway. That's going to be a problem. I'm going to have to start clicking back over to the Someone who might know a little bit more about it has also expressed concerns about Libra.
The Fed chief calls for Facebook to halt the Libra project until concerns can be addressed. Mainly, he's worried about money laundering. And it's like, wait, won't this facilitate money laundering? I don't think anybody should tell the Fed chief about the money laundering that's going on Amazon.
I don't think he's mainly worried about money laundering. I think he's mainly worried about the Gresham's Law.
Bad money forces out good?
Because people are going to, it's capital controls. Now, the U.S. doesn't really worry about capital controls because we're throwing our money all over the globe, and that's good for us.
Pallets and pallets of cash have gone missing in Iraq.
But yeah, and more importantly, taxation. Although I'm sure that Libra is going to report you all day long.
Yeah.
All right, I mean,
there's no anonymity with Libra because Facebook is involved, one, but two, cryptocurrency. You combine those two forces and there's no anonymity.
So we didn't start with the GPI, but that doesn't mean we don't have a GPI content. Those of you who were worried, we do have it. Now remember, I guess it's been 2 weeks ago, we talked about that law about apartment buildings and the wiring inside of them.
Things have gotten weird.
And it's like, okay, well, that kind of makes sense. Well, a GPI has stormed in, but he stormed in on a platform that makes absolutely no sense. I mean, it's ridiculous.
This is crazy, in quotation marks. The FCC has killed part of San Francisco's broadband-competition law. So Ars Technica tried to unpack this. I don't know that they succeeded.
I had to read it twice.
Yeah. So a GPI is literally trying to say that for an apartment building, if a customer is subscribed to one ISP and they elect to subscribe to a second ISP, he just wants to be clear that those two ISPs don't have to share the same Ethernet cable running to a particular apartment in an office building. The San Francisco law was more like multiple ISPs can install their equipment independently in a single apartment building, and as long as the wiring is unused, any particular ISP can use whatever wiring is in an office building. So there's a distinction between the wiring that comes to the building and then the wiring that is distributed throughout the building from, say, a wiring closet or a series of wiring closets through a multi-story building.
I think the goal here, though, is just to strike it down on this insane ground.
Yeah.
So, and the people of San Francisco were like, well, I think you misinterpreted because that's sort of an impossible scenario, and we're not trying to say anything about that. This is for inactive units only. But I don't know if he's trying to hear that or not.
No. Well, part of his original argument was that building owners should be able to be paid, and like it was a totally normal thing that you would see. This is how New York City got in a bad situation with this kind of stuff. But say you own an apartment building, you can contractually set up a deal with Time Warner or somebody at the time, Time Warner, Comcast, whoever, and it's like, I will give you access to all of the tenants in my building in exchange for you wiring it and providing service. And the building owner would get a pretty substantial amount of money, and Comcast or whoever would have a captive audience for the people in that apartment building. And originally, Ajit Pai was saying that those kind of deals need to be protected because there's not a lot of incentive for those ISPs to give a landlord money if the tenants can still order service through another provider. But this isn't that at all.
He would like it to be.
Yeah. It's sort of nuts.
Once in a while, though, even Ajit Pai does something right. And when he does something right, he likes to break it down into little bitty parts so he can press release each individual part so you think maybe he's doing something right. And this one is just a slam dunk. Even Hitler would have supported this. Like, there's been no despot in history that wouldn't have taken this slam dunk.
Robocall ban should target texts and foreign calls, the FCC chief says. So the proposed new rules would extend robocall blocking to international calls and texts. They cite there's a couple of companies or a handful of companies that they've already taken down that are doing like auto insurance renewals, and like there's an old folks scam and like 2 or 3 other things. And it's like, yes, this has already been successful in the private sector, and we need to do more to do this. Okay.
I think we should enter into a world where anything agreed to over the phone is not enforceable. It's not a valid contract.
Yeah.
Because there's no reason for that anymore.
There have been cases that were really egregious where people have recorded their calls and the robocallers have gotten them to say yes, and then like the robocallers have spliced together somebody saying yes into agreeing to a whole bunch, and it's like, no, that's not what you asked me. You asked me something else. It's crazy.
Well, we have the scourge of ransomware as I frantically scroll back to the top of the story. Because
do you have numlock on? Because numlock should not be on.
I can't tell, but we'll click it. Ransomware. Florida got hit twice. I think
we made fun of Florida for 3 weeks in a row because it was just endless.
Philadelphia, right?
Philadelphia.
Alabama. Maybe it was North Carolina, one of them.
It turns out that all these little municipal cities should not have computers. They should go back to typewriters.
Well, they had to for a little while. So the thing about those stories, the thing they have in common other than ransomware is almost everybody paid. I think Philadelphia didn't, right?
I think they all ended up paying.
Did they?
One of the I don't know if it was Philadelphia, but one of the cities that paid the ransomware brought in some tech specialists to help them recover their stuff, and so they paid the tech specialists who then paid the ransomware.
Yeah, they say that those protection companies, those insurance companies, they always pay.
Yeah,
that's how it works. They don't fix it; they just pay. Anyway, that's probably bad because even though you're saving yourself, you're kind of screwing everybody down the line. It's like pulling out slowly from a red light. You don't notice it because it's just normal for you, but everybody behind you hates you because you're slow. And that is what this group of mayors seeks to fix.
A U.S. mayors group adopts a resolution not to pay any more ransoms to hackers. What's actually going to happen is they're going to continue to pay ransoms to hackers because they do not have backups.
The other thing that's interesting about this, non-binding, because I don't think, even if you're a member of the U.S. mayors group or whatever this is, you don't have to follow their rules. They're not like a powerful entity or anything.
This is like, I guess this is a message to ransomware attackers to be like, please don't attack us. We're not going to pay. But they'll pay.
They'll pay. You know, they said that Philadelphia, for holding out, was losing millions a day.
Yeah.
And I don't know what the total price was, but after 3 or 4 days, you're already better off having paid it right away.
I've had to have that conversation with people a few times. It's like, look, you're saving $500,000 by not doing this thing that you need to do, but annually it costs you like $2 million. Are you dumb? Can you not do the math? And then it's like, oh yeah, we should probably do that. Ransomware, same kind of thing. Although if they don't fix the problem, the ransomware people will just come right back later, and it makes them a juicy target. It's like, this person's willing to pay the ransom. Then the whole criminal underworld gets a memo with your name on it, and then that's very bad.
But there is no fixing the problem, because the problem is the ineptitude of government workers. You know, they just get fished. So what are you going to do about that? Shoot the people if they click a link?
If that's the level of fear that they need in order to not click those links?
Voting machines. We talk about voting machines constantly because they are not super secure. And in fact, you know, we're coming up on the end of life of Windows 7. And other than those hardcore anti-telemetry people, who's using Windows 7, you ask? Enterprises? Well, maybe. You know, people with software that isn't ported to the new ones, maybe. But sadly and shockingly, guess who else?
This AP exclusive is new election systems use vulnerable software. So these are new, quote unquote, election machines ready for a new election cycle. Guess what? They're on Windows 7.
Yeah. Sad. And here's the thing about election machines. Like they're really important, right? Why not just run your own OS? Because your OS doesn't have to do a lot of things. It has to count things.
There are actually PhD students that have produced mathematically verifiably secure operating systems just for such a purpose.
And yet, not interested. Now, you might be thinking to yourself, okay, got my torch, got my pitchfork. Whose house do I need to go to get on the situation with this Windows 7 voting machine? Who do we need to attack? Who needs to be brought down to fix this problem? Well, sir, that's a trade secret.
TechDirt has this article. The voting machine makers claim the names of the entities that own them are trade secrets. Yes, the North Carolina State Board of Elections asked the suppliers of electronic voting machines a simple question: who owns you? And they get a bunch of non-answers. Now, you might be thinking other things too, like maybe it's like Windows 7 embedded, and there's an extended support contract for that, or a whole bunch of other things. No, security researchers like DEF CON and Black Hat will be more than happy to tell you that these systems are wildly insecure and not patched.
And again, what percentage of Windows 7's suite of features do you need for a voting machine? 1. The mouse.
Touchscreen support.
The display.
Remember those reports from last year where the touchscreens were so badly calibrated that you would touch the screen and it would vote?
Was that really a mistake though? So yeah, that's a sad state that we're in. What was it? Was it Sweden or Switzerland? They were letting their post office design voting machines.
Oh yeah, and they had the software online, and then it leaked ahead, and it was wildly insecure.
Yeah.
Oops.
So this is a case of private companies who are probably in bed with politicians.
9 out of 10 computer scientists agree. Voting machines, no.
Then when you do you let the government do it, or do you let the corrupt private companies do it? I don't. Both answers are wrong.
And you ask the computer scientists, the academics, and they're like, what are you doing making a voting machine like this? This is crazy.
I just had to get my driver's license renewed because of change of address, which I had resisted for quite some time. It turns out they won't sell you a gun if that doesn't match. And it's just shocking how badly the DMV is run pretty much everywhere. I mean, it's a meme that everybody hates it, right? But when you think to yourself, when it's over. I don't have to deal with that for ever how many years. And, nothing bad is going to happen now, right? But wait, the DMV has an extra message for you.
The Florida DMV sells your personal information to private companies and marketing firms. They make about $77 million a year. This is a WPTV article. Like, this should be national news, but it turns out, so there was this old lady, I guess, that was in a nursing home or something.
I don't know if it was an old lady, but it was somebody with some kind of disease who never left the house. But they needed an ID to do something.
Like their Medicare or Medicaid or some kind of financial assistance.
So this is a person who doesn't shop, doesn't have credit cards, doesn't have a banking account, doesn't have any marketing,
any digital footprint.
They don't exist as far as the online stuff, except they eventually had to get that driver's license.
And guess what? They turned up in a database, and then an investigation happened, and then it's like, wait, the DMV literally sells this. That seems bad.
Yeah, so they said, the DMV says, well, yeah, we do sell data, but they're not allowed to use it for marketing purposes.
The investigators here also figured out that they could also get individually identifiable information out, which was not supposed to happen, but any list of data like this, there's personally identifiable information in it, and it's out. I mean, it's out. What more do you want?
And if Facebook is not allowed to profit from selling my data, should the government be?
This is all public information. Is it though? Is it really?
Well, it technically is, because we do business with a company that counts on that. But let's make it not. How about that? Oh, this might be the feel-good story of the week. We should refresh this, and we've talked about this several times, but a simplest form possible. A law firm made porn, made it themselves, put it on the torrent sites,
like the Pirate Bay,
and then every IP that connected to it and downloaded it. Well, they copyrighted it first, obviously. Then every IP that connected to it and downloaded it, they sued.
So it turns out that that's frowned upon, using the judicial system to shake people down like that. And so the copyright troll lawyers, the cooperative copyright troll lawyer has been sentenced to 5 years in prison. His co-conspirator got 15 years in prison, who is appealing his sentence. This is Prenda Law. The whole, Prenda Law story finally comes to an end, pretty much. Although I'll be upset if the guy that got 15 years gets through his appeal and gets less than 5 years, because the one guy is just, one of the lawyers was like, oh, this is wrong, I shouldn't have done this, and the other lawyer is just shamelessly.
Yeah, Well, I don't think either of them should get any leniency. I mean,
well, the one got 5 years, which is kind of leniency.
how could you not know what you were doing was the lowest of the low? And you're supposed to,
lawyer,
as an officer of the court, don't you take some kind of
lawyer
oath or something?
Lawyer.
So yeah, you should get no. 5 years is far too little. But it was a crazy scam, and I think it only worked because people were embarrassed because porn.
Yeah.
So at least maybe nobody will copy it. I remember a few years ago we did a story about a ringtone that only kids were able to hear. Remember that?
Oh yeah, yeah.
So governments, they saw that. They saw that idea and they said, how can we make this the most evil thing we can think of?
I've seen a few cases of this, though, but even before that, it's like, can you hear it? Sonic devices play high-pitched noises to repel teens. So in places where teenagers hang out, they just have this really high-pitched noise, and so, teenagers can hear it, and so they don't hang out because it's annoying.
One girl described it as it's like a buzzing in the back of your head. Like you don't really hear it, but it's there. Also, I think it's just at night. So they don't, the kids are vandalizing and spray painting and doing stuff like that.
Stabbing.
But as much as I dislike children and teens, and as much as I would love them to just be caged in their homes and not have to deal with them, reference that trip to the DMV. One guy had 2 strollers. Oh my God. Anyway, even though I can't stand them, I cannot support putting up devices to run them away like dogs in public places. They do have rights. The one politician is aggressively trying to get these taken down. And
this is an NPR story. It's kind of interesting.
Although, did you see those videos this week of? I think that was in Philadelphia, right?
Mm-hmm.
The Philadelphia teens who will just flash mob like convenience stores and just tear them apart.
No, I didn't.
Oh, you gotta watch those videos. Yeah, it's just insane.
That's terrible.
It's like a plague of locusts hitting a CSP or a CVS. The British Airways had a little data breach. Well, they didn't really have a data breach. They had somebody got into their systems and redirected their traffic. So it wasn't their data, but it was their security failure. Now, in the past, you probably think, well, that's probably going to be like a $10 million fine, right? But now with GDPR, they are not playing around anymore.
British Airways is facing a record £183 million fine for data breach. Everybody's airline ticket is going up £10 for the next 15 years in order to cover this.
Hey, you don't get any snacks anymore. They got a nice little infographic down here to show. So, like, let's look at, all right, we got Sony here, and he's like, okay, you have Scottish Border Council, and I think Equifax. Oh, yeah, here we go. Equifax. There's Equifax and Facebook. Pretty big circles, right? Boom. British Airways. So, yeah, GDPR, these Euro governments are not playing around with these companies. They want the money, and now they have the means to take it.
Seems like it would be of more value to the company to just not maintain that data.
That's a good question. I mean, I don't think you make $183 million a year selling data, right?
Yeah, I mean, how many customers can British Airways have?
Although, if Florida DMV can make $77 million, was it 77 or 17?
It was 77.
If they can make that from one DMV, British Airways probably makes more than that. Because they have a lot more people flying than you have getting licenses at one place, right?
I wonder if it's going to turn into a vicious cycle where now British Airways is compelled to sell your data in order to make up the money from the fine. So they're going to put all kinds of clauses and stuff in there. It's like, you agreed to this. You agreed.
Yeah, the robocalls go up, by order of magnitude because they keep getting more fines. It's a vicious circle. France. Oh, no. Yahoo does that thing where it automatically puts the cursor in the search bar. France, now as we alluded to earlier, France, a terrible place. And pretty universally hated, I think. A lot of people look down on the French. And I'm sure nobody will disagree with that in the comments. But we welcome the engagement. Anyway, they've done something else that I don't think is going to move them up the list unloved governments at all.
France is pushing a new law that would jail social media officials for not deleting hate speech. And this Yahoo News article goes on to explain why that is a terrible idea and why the government deciding what exactly is hate speech is going to end very badly.
Now, they do have... here we go. Sexual orientation, religion, nationality, race, gender identity or disability, harassment, and propaganda tied to terrorism or war crimes. Basically everything. Did you see the video about the guy at the bagel shop?
Oh, yeah, where he goes crazy because there's girls behind the counter trying to do stuff. Yeah.
Because he's short.
Yeah.
Like, he's a tiny little guy. And, you know, I was talking to somebody about that. I was like, this guy is so unlucky. Because as a minuscule white male, he is the one demographic that it's okay to hate and make fun of anymore. And so, like, the entirety of the internet just zeroed in on him for destruction. And he's not a protected class, so what's he going to do about it? He's not in that list.
He needs to dye his hair pink and
transition.
speak with a lisp or something.
That's all he can do. And France is not done yet. Although, I mean, I don't know. This one's not as despotic, I think. This is just, once again, there's that
cash grab,
big delicious pie, and everybody wants their part.
France approves a digital tax on American tech giants defining the U.S. trade threat. So it's 3%, and it is so poorly defined as to basically be undefined. It's like, I don't know, 3%. It's like 3% of what? 3% of gross revenue, 3% of revenues from France, 3% of profit.
Yes.
Yeah, and it's just,
all
okay.
Those things. Which, in terms of Facebook, 3% is, they make what, $5 billion a quarter?
Yeah.
So those are big numbers. Not bad. Now, Trump has weighed in on this, and Trump says that that's trade war talk. And you might get some tariffs. He loves those tariffs, So we'll see. I mean, it is true that almost every company that law would target is a U.S.-based company.
I think Google could probably turn off Google search in France and be fine.
Or Facebook, Twitter.
Just
sorry. Shut them down.
Make the people pay it. The people that are in it's like, if you want to use Facebook, you're going to have to pay this.
And we know that Google has that technology because of China. So
we laugh, but it actually would be better for competition and diversity on the internet. It would be less homogenous.
That would be better for France even.
Yeah.
Because if they had to bootstrap and create their own search engine, and then all of a sudden we had two.
Yeah. Their Ministry of Culture having a French language search engine that's actually not garbage. That could be.
With the work ethic over there. I mean, each search is going to take 30 minutes. Are you ready for that?
A little old lady that's retired would have to go to a card catalog.
Remember when Japan landed on the asteroid and then they shot it and then they blew it up? Well, that was all successful, and now they've come back.
Japan's Hayabusa 2 probe has collected samples from a distant asteroid. So they describe a fridge-sized thing landing on this thing, collecting what were probably organic samples and maybe water, and now they're going to try to get this thing back to Earth.
This was the crater that was left from the explosion. So they blew away. They got a sample from the outer crust, which had been, irradiated. Then they blew it up, landed in the crater, and got the juicy insides.
So we're going to learn about the solar system. I think it said that this particular comet or asteroid or whatever was 4.5 billion years old. So it's probably going to reveal a lot about the early composition of the solar system. And there could even be organic matter here.
There could be a protovirus that wipes us all out.
This is literally the Andromeda strain come to kill us all.
We will have learned a lot from that. Like, shouldn't have done that.
An empty Earth with our nascent AI. It's just like, I don't know, where'd everybody go? I don't know.
Just on a loop, broadcasting out into the nothingness.
Yeah.
Don't mess with asteroids. Asteroids, not even once. The Chinese, of course, are constantly accused of stealing our trade secrets. And I think that's unfair, right? I mean, there's no proof of that.
Oh, no. The U.S. has charged Chinese software engineer Xudong Yao with stealing trade secrets from former American employer. The suspect, known as William Yao, is considered a fugitive and believed to be back in China, the U.S. prosecutors say. He faces 9 counts of theft of electronic files and worked for a locomotive manufacturer in Illinois.
This was train routing software. So, like, you got a bunch of train tracks, you got a bunch of trains, obviously keeping them from running into each other.
That sounds like a version of the traveling salesperson problem. That's going to be hard.
Yeah, that's valuable stuff, right? And we know that China loves building big, fast trains. So, just grab that.
Let's get some software.
But, maybe we're stealing stuff from them. Do you think we'd hear about that in the news if that happened?
Oh, yeah. No, there was definitely a case where it was with the windmills and some poor German company, I think. That's a story for another day.
Oh, yeah, I think I remember that. Yeah, but that wasn't so much espionage as just like bureaucratic rape.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, so it's a different way of going about it.
We laugh, but it's actually horrifying.
Over in China, they're also having a little problem with Hong Kong. And the people of Hong Kong, it was because of that extradition law. It was going to make it so that mainland China could just come in and grab you out of Hong Kong and prosecute you in China. People were a little afraid of that. I don't know why. But they have been in the streets ever since. I mean, it's crazy because you think about how many people are over there. They can stir up like a 1 or 2 million march in no time at all. And it's happening like just day after day. So you can't get that into China through the firewall. What do you do?
Hong Kong's protesters put AirDrop to ingenious use against China's firewall. So AirDrop is this article talks about how AirDrops were used in like World War II, but they're talking about AirDrop, the iPhone functionality, which is a peer-to-peer file sharing system. And so there's no blocking that because it's not really on the internet. If you were in Hong Kong, internet access in Hong Kong was basically terrible during all of these protests. But with AirDrop, they could share files, and it was basically fine. In one case, they were sharing something that looks like it was a money transfer thing, but then when you would look at it, it was like, hey, this is the law they're trying to pass. This is all the stuff that it does. This is why it's bad.
Did you ever see that? They had a thing for North Korea. There was a group. I think it wasn't a government group. It was like a nonprofit or something. And they would get balloons and AirDrop like portable DVD players and box sets of Western TV shows. It's like, no, look at how the world really can be, was basically the idea. It's like, here's season 3 of Friends. Well, that's not really how the world is, but if you're North Korean, imagine how that blows your mind. And you're watching that in the cellar so the stormtroopers don't see it.
I'm imagining the movie The Gods Must Be Crazy, and the DVDs are like the Coke bottle.
Although I don't think they would have the means to recharge those.
Yeah, it's like, the magic box has run out of power. No.
There's no way you're going to get through a whole season of Friends.
Sorry.
We don't often talk about Brazil in the tech news. They don't make the tech news very often. And this one, the headline seems really great. And it seems like, hey, maybe everybody should have this. But when you read into it, it gets a little darker.
Brazil to add digital data protection to fundamental rights. A proposal has been approved to put protection of personal information on digital platforms to the individual guaranteed by the Constitution. The only problem is that you have to give that data that's protected over to the government.
And the bigger problem is the spark that lit this fire was a corrupt politician
misusing
got
data.
his data stolen, and it exposed his corruption. So he was like, no, we can't have this. This is bad.
What you should do is just treat it as fake news. Just call everything fake news, and then it'll be fine.
Well, that's basically what he did. He played the old this is not true and I was the victim here card.
Yeah,
which is that's how you do that. It usually works. Now, we've heard about India plans to go to the moon. I think Japan has a moon program. Does China have a moon program?
Probably.
All the big, space agencies seem to have a moon program. And now, another one has joined. Another one bites the moon dust.
That might be this week's title. TASS, I think, has the least credible story this week, but it says Russia plans to use 3D printing and lunar dust to create a moon base, according to Roscosmos, or they're going to call it Roscosmos, I guess. I don't know. So moon dust is insanely abrasive. I'm not sure that it's a good building material.
But abrasive is what you want for like concrete.
Yeah, because it's going to lock together.
Yeah, because like desert sand can't be concrete. It has to be river sand. And we have a global river sand shortage.
Yeah.
So that might work. It makes sense because you wouldn't want to carry all that mass to the moon.
Yeah.
But how much moon dust do we have on the Earth to test with?
Not a lot.
Yeah, it's you really.
So we're going to have to send robots. We're going to have to send Terminators, basically, to the moon to build this thing and then be like, yep, it works, or doesn't.
Well, the big test, I think, though, that you're not going to be able to do is the long-term viability of it.
Yeah.
So, I mean...
Lava tubes. Just drill a hole in a lava tube.
How do you simulate something coming out of space and hitting it?
Oh, yeah. That would... lava tubes, again, would probably be better.
Can you 3D print a lava tube? I don't know.
No, they're already there. You just drill a hole in the top of it and you're good to go. It's also built-in radiation shielding, which is awesome.
What about the moonworms?
Well, that might be a problem. We'll need some mood radex.
Moving on to security. Passwords for a lot of people are a huge issue. You get a lot of support calls and it's like, hey, my email isn't working. And you say, okay, what's your password?
Hunter
I
2.
don't know. I don't know my password. I got a new iPhone. I don't know my password. And, well, like you say, yeah, bad passwords, terrible passwords. And it's so bad that the people at Microsoft have kind of just thrown up their hands.
Microsoft is making Windows 10 passwordless. It's part of a bigger push to get rid of passwords. So this sounds like this would be the terrible idea, but it's actually making the password device specific, or the passcode, or the fingerprint, or whatever. So like with Windows Hello, it's not just you're logging in with your face. There's also a token on the device. So you have to have that specific device. Your face login somewhere else is not going to work. And your face or your fingerprint or whatever, or your PIN number, whatever it is that gets you in. And that's actually more secure than having to type your password every single day, because you could get a keylogger, or you could get something that asks you for your password. And it's like, if you only ask for your password when you're enrolling new devices, something like this could actually be more secure. Combine this with two-factor, and it's actually a pretty secure setup.
And they talk about that's all going to take place in the TPM, and so the main operating system should never see any kind of password. Although we have seen security problems with that as well. So.
Or token, or PIN number, or whatever.
Yeah. Well, I mean, the TPM itself has been
kind
of cracked open recently. So.
Yeah. Thanks, Intel.
Now, we alluded to Windows 7 earlier, and that maybe there could be some security risks with it. But what if those security risks come from inside the house?
Microsoft has stirred suspicion by adding telemetry to a security-only update. So this is not the first time. A lot of people are like, hey, I'm still on Windows 7, not Windows 10. It's not spying on me. Bad news. A lot of the Windows 10 telemetry has been backported and patched into Windows 7 for quite some time. This is really upsetting to a lot of firms, because this is a security update, a security-only update, which some firms are enrolled in. And it sure does look like this security-only update is adding logging telemetry for remote monitoring. So,
well, when they dug into it, it's bad, but it's kind of like I think Microsoft officially had no comment, but behind the scenes, the answer is really, it's like, no, we didn't add telemetry. This is a security-only update. We were updating the security on that telemetry that we added the last time we did that. It needs a security update. So technically, this is a security update. So you shouldn't be angry about it.
Come over to the Linux land. The water's fine, basically.
If you are using an Android device and you use popular apps, you might think, well, there's no way that Facebook could spy on me. Well, maybe Facebook's spying on me, but it's not installing malware, right? It's Facebook. I can trust it.
Facebook is so secure and so worried about people spying on me. I've got a free VPN service through Facebook.
But if you are using a super popular app like Facebook or Twitter or something like that, you might have to worry about Agent Smith.
Malicious apps infect 25 million Android devices with the Agent Smith malware. So this is a malware for Android that has, as so far, gone undetected. This is another data point in that Google is literally not paying attention at all to what is going on in the Android App Store, because I feel there's no way that if they had just one person that was looking at Android Store uploads, just one person, they would have caught this.
You think one person could cover all of them?
Yeah, I mean, just looking at the analytics and looking at the data, it's like one person would take like the top 100 applications and just look at them. They would have caught this.
So this thing will actually, disguise itself as an install of one of those popular apps. It will install the app, and the app will function normally, but it will then hijack the permissions you give to that app, which in the case of Facebook
is everything,
literally everything your phone can do, and it will install other payloads. So far, they've only seen it serving ads, but with the Facebook permissions, it can do whatever it wants.
It seemed like I read another article that said that not just serving ads, but also it was a low grade, like click farm kind of a thing. So generating, I guess, bot traffic for ads, because that's a great way to rip off advertising companies.
And that could directly cost you money through your data cap.
Yeah.
So that's not great. But, hey, that's not really the fault of Facebook or Google or any of the big guys, right? That's just people using their names in vain, and we shouldn't blame them for it. They would never, ever betray our trust like that.
Oh, wait. T&W has Google contractors are secretly listening to your assistant recordings. So there's an interesting thing that happened, and there's like 3 different articles here on this.
I actually cut them all down to this one.
Oh, it's okay. It's just
because they're all the same.
The first place to cover this was out of Belgium. What does that tell you about how crazy this is?
Well, that's where it happened.
So that's crazy.
So what happened is there was a leak, and it seemed like it was a malicious leak.
Yeah. Like
somebody was like, people need to understand what's happening here, because this is a person who was hired to listen to your Google recordings. And we've talked about this before, I think, with Alexa, right? Where they're just warehouses full of people listening and being like, trying to teach the AI how to understand you better. But in doing so, humans are listening to your stuff. So this person said, the world needs to know. They released it, and then Google was forced to admit it.
Yeah, well, Google actually freaked out. They said that they had launched an internal investigation. The security, I think this is the exact quote, the security team has been mobilized. And so I get the picture of like people in like full riot gear in helicopters departing from Mountain View or Santa Clara or somewhere, and like flying via helicopter somewhere.
There's an empty rack of M4s in the Google headquarters somewhere.
They're going to deal with those contractors in Belgium.
Now the other thing, the local TV station you talked about, the people that broke this, they were able to tie those recordings to real people.
Yeah, and you're not supposed to be able to do that. It's supposed to be anonymized. Oops.
Sad. Something tells me that there's going to be a GDPR ruling coming out.
Oh, man, that's going to be like a lot of money.
But it also confirms what everybody has really already known.
Yeah.
That yes, it's recording. It's recording more often. Now, I think these were just okay Google recordings. But I don't believe that. That's probably what they're letting the warehouse people listen to. But I don't believe that's all they record.
You think any of our OK Google shenanigans have come up in the recordings? Because it's like, OK Google, order some gummy bears.
Well, I mean, if we hit, say 100 people per video when we do that, then yeah. Although I don't know about in Belgium, it's probably just Belgium language, right?
Yeah. So I think it's Alexa that can order the gummy bears anywhere.
We got to figure out a different language to do a home bot attack on every week. In Greece, they've had another hacking issue, but this one is interesting because this hacking team, they said to themselves, going after individuals and breaking into individual systems, that's hard. What if we could just break into the main pipeline and once we're there, do whatever we want? That seems easier.
ZDNet has hackers have breached Greece's top-level domain registrar. So this is a lot like hackers getting a hold of .com, like anything .com. But this is Greece's top-level domain.
It's .gr, gr and something else. I can't remember what the other one was. But they have 2. EL. .gr and .el. So once they got in there, what they could do is they could take popular .gr and .el sites, route them to their man-in-the-middle sites, and just harvest away.
Mine cryptocurrency, steal passwords, all kinds of fun stuff. This is bad.
Yeah. So, unfortunately, Greece is in the European Union, but as we know, GDPR cannot be used against your government. Sad. The thing about that, the record fine, British Airways, at the footnote in that article, is like, okay, so what happens to all that money? And it's like, how much goes to the victims? Zero, nothing. It all goes to the agencies who fine the companies. And some of it goes into the treasury. So it just fuels the
So what you're saying,
parasites.
the people in Belgium that had the recordings stolen and they're now forever part of the indelible, news story of forever, they get no compensation?
Nothing. They get nothing. They might be able to sue individually. I don't know what the Belgian court system is like.
That would be funny.
But that would probably be like dismissed or rolled into the national one.
Everybody wants their cut all the way down.
Yeah, but the only people who get the cut are the agencies who are fining the tech companies.
Seems like that's mafia. Like, that kind of reminds me of protection money.
Now, let's say that you are a Chinese hacker and you work for a company they got some really, really sensitive data, and you have kind of a low-level position, but you need to get into those air-gapped systems. Now, you've infected them, but now you have to exfiltrate the data. How will you do that? The answer is here.
Academics are stealing data from air-gapped systems via keyboard LEDs. So software can control your caps lock and your num lock and your scroll lock light. So software can toggle that on and off subtly and surreptitiously, and you can use that to transmit information from a system that has been compromised.
Very slowly.
Yes.
They actually have some data rates here. It's not fast, but if you had a security camera that was running 24/7, over time, you could probably do some damage with this.
You could definitely steal like private encryption keys and stuff like that easily. The most sophisticated attack like this that I saw used the Ethernet LEDs, and those will blink at a very high rate.
It's tough to get a camera. I mean, unless the computer's sitting on a desk though, with the back facing something. If they're like in a server stack or something.
They used a high-speed camera and just stuck it somewhere, and then came to get it a few months later. It was just like the optics were such that it was just right in on the network connection, and it's like, that's weird.
We're gonna see like super secure keyboards with no lights on them.
Or just take some electrical tape and just put over your LEDs.
Well, they could just yank that off though.
I think the ST211, the old 5.25-inch drive, I think that if you had a high-speed camera, you could actually read the data that the hard drive was reading from the platters via the LED.
Probably not too many of those in use.
No, well, 10, I mean, you never know. It might be. It's from the 80s, so there might still be one of those in use somewhere.
I think that's the last story. Yeah, it's so hard to tell with this new Chromium thing.
What do we got? What do we got coming up tomorrow?
This was government security. Tomorrow will be business and social.
Neat. We'll see you tomorrow.
We had a lot of social media in this one, but it was all government fine related, so I figured we'd put it in government.
Yeah, there's not really a lot of news this week, really. I mean, there's a podcast on Patreon now. We're uploading these as MP3s to Patreon because Google is getting weird about downloading as MP3s from YouTube. So,
which we'll have a story about in the business section. Stay tuned.
It's Wednesday, July 15th, 7/15/2019. Woo!
It's coming up on Prime Day. Are you primed for that?
Our Twitch stream should be.
Why?
Because Twitch Prime subscriptions for free on Twitch.
I don't think you get like an extra one for Prime Day or anything, do you?
I don't know. Last year they had a promotion of some kind.
Oh, that's cool. I didn't realize that. Maybe we should do a special Twitch stream that day. Anyway, some other people are planning a special event for Prime Day.
Engadget says that Amazon staff will strike during Prime Day over working conditions. They're unhappy with quotas and a reluctance to hire permanent workers. Yeah, so I don't know. I wonder if this even, like, Jeff Bezos doesn't, not only does he not care, this is just going to hasten the robot takeover.
Yeah. Well, they did this last year. Or was it? No, it was Black Friday they did it. And it didn't really amount to anything. course, the Amazon logistical network is so massive that one cell striking at any given time means nothing.
Yeah.
I mean, the machine can just bypass that cell. So if your package is already in that warehouse, maybe you get it a day late, but probably not even that.
They're going to dispatch a busload of like Terminator robots to just come and take over the entire warehouse.
Now, you mentioned the robot revolution and how quickly he's going to get rid of these, filthy union workers who want, bathroom breaks and air conditioning. And he's going to bring in the robots. Now, that's kind of already happening. And Amazon knows what a PR disaster that's going to be. And Jeff Bezos has 3 words for those people. Learn to code. And don't flag me for hate speech. He literally said that.
Amazon pledges $700 million to teach its workers to code. This is a Wired article. And I mean, that's good. But what percentage of those workers are going to successfully be able to learn to code?
Yeah. Especially when you think about, there's a lot of those, people will retire and go live the RV life that Krista talks about but will never commit to. And they just nomad their way around the country from fulfillment center to fulfillment center. Do you think those people are really going to pick up
coding?
IT? And if they do, that destroys their RV lifestyle.
Yeah. Yeah. Some people want this kind of a... I want to say that people want the bad aspects of the job. Some people are doing it because it's an easy job and it's a job where you can be nomadic. So there are some positives there, but it seems like for those workers, it would be a better use of their time to, a tradesman like a traveling plumber would probably be more successful because everybody everywhere needs plumbing service.
But you got to get licensed and bonded.
That's true.
So the local regulations will kill you if you try to do something like that.
I guess you could maybe be an apprentice for something. You could go to your local plumbing shop and be like, "Hey, I'm here for the summer HVAC rush."
I think that would be tough. With Amazon, I think the simplicity of it is the work is there anytime you need it, so you can just you can come and go. Anyway, they have the program that is like a 90-day program. They let you do it for free, and it's supposed to teach you the basics of IT. And I think they have another one for programming. This
would be kind of cool, though, if this is basically a way to find a way to promote people out of the warehouse. Not just for IT stuff, but literally anything the company might need.
Well, it's not that they're trying to promote them out of the warehouse. They're promoting them out of the way of the robots. $700 million is probably a good buy considering how much the PR spin and marketing and advertising would cost to try to turn that story around. And if you pull 10% of those people into your workforce and you know that they're trained specifically on your equipment, then probably,
Neat.
I'm saying 10% of those people will actually be excellent workers for your robot empire eventually. You alluded to this one, YouTube. This is one of those things where this reminds me of when Google removed the directly view this image from Google Images. It's a pointless arms race type of thing to do. It's not going to last, and it's just simply to appease the copyright trolls.
I thought you were going to say when Google removed the ability to get your subscriptions as an RSS feed. But TechDirt has the article to say that YouTube is beginning to block stream ripping sites. So if you have a YouTube playlist or a YouTube video that you would like to have an MP3 version of, they've actually started blocking the sites and tools that do that.
One site, who did not want to be mentioned by name, said they'd already worked around it with a series of proxies. So it's not going to last long term, but this lets Google say, well, we tried, so...
To the rights holders.
Yeah, sorry. Turns out that information, once it's sent out, cannot be protected. That's weird how that works. But the copyright people cannot get their head around that. T-Mobile has angered some of its people, as all the phone companies did, by selling location data to prisons and bounty hunters and things like that.
Twice after they told people they would stop.
And you think to yourself, well, that seems like a slam dunk case, right? Well, maybe not.
T-Mobile says it cannot be sued by its users because of a forced arbitration clause. So I want to hear from old hipster dude that's always like trying to be the cool dude. It's like, this is not cool, dude. What are you doing?
Is that a advertising campaign?
John Lugomer, I don't know how to pronounce his last name. He's the CEO, and he's like, look, I'm always wearing jeans and a suit jacket and just
jack boots.
Yeah, it's just we can't be sued because of forced arbitration. So T-Mobile is saying no.
Now this arbitration is built into the agreement that you agreed to when you bought your plan. By law, you cannot force people to do this. But if you wanted to opt out of it, you had to read all the way to the end of the user agreement, call an 800 number, and go through some god-awful process to opt out of it, which literally no one has ever done. So these people are probably screwed. Sad. A lot of people, well, I don't know about a lot of people, some people lamented the loss of DeepNude, which really, it didn't show naked women against their will. It superimposed the head of women onto other nude images.
Could have also been called auto Photoshop. And
yeah, which people have been making fake nudes of celebrities since Photoshop has existed. I mean, it's not a new thing, but we've seen this previously with other things where when AI makes something really easy, then people lash out against it, which is interesting. And it's so controversial that GitHub has done something rather extreme.
GitHub has removed the open source versions of DeepNude. So the creator of DeepNude shuttered the app and digitally undressed women, and multiple people uploaded their own versions to GitHub, but GitHub has removed all of those. So Microsoft owns GitHub. I feel like that's sort of a factor here.
Now, GitHub does have a policy about how nudity can be artistic, but if things are pornographic, they might be against the terms of service. Now, this AI, I think, has all that stuff in a data set, right? All those images that it uses. So technically it does contain nudity, but is that pornography?
It's a training set for AI first and foremost, so maybe.
But nudity is not. I mean, pornography has to be the act of sex, right? And none of this would be.
I don't know.
So,
yeah, it's probably the controversial thing. If it was just like, here's a set of clothed people, and you can put somebody's head on somebody else's body. Again, we're finally entering, like, there's the sea change that I'm always talking about in AI is when I can take a movie like Lord of the Rings and substitute, Danny DeVito for every character. We're getting there. We're very close.
How about when you pull up to your favorite fast food chain to get your, whatever you get, to get your, what is that coffee that you're addicted to?
Oh, the Panera hazelnut coffee.
Is that what you got over there?
Yes. Yeah, the hazelnut coffee. I had some. I don't know what it is. Like, I'm not normally a coffee person, but that's some damn fine coffee.
Well, pretty soon you might pull up to Panera and they've got that hazelnut brewing before you even speak a word.
Yeah.
Because they're going to know based on your license plate.
I'm already in the database for sure. Fast food chains consider trying license plate recognition in drive-thrus. This is not really super surprising. A lot of this technology already exists in commercial stores, especially like high-end commercial stores. They are already tracking you. There's cameras, your face. You go into like the high-end store at the mall, they know who you are. They know what's up.
Well, McDonald's just recently bought an AI company, and they talked about how part of their new thing is personalized drive-through experience. So when you pull up, they might offer you a deal that other people don't get just because they know what kind of customer you are.
Yeah. Well, imagine a future where all of this is a little bit more tightly integrated. Your Google Assistant, pops up, and it's basically, hey, Google Assistant, I'm feeling like, McDonald's, how busy is McDonald's? Can you get me an Egg McMuffin in like 10 minutes? And the Google Assistant makes the little beeping noises and is like, yes, I can do that.
Well, but they've already got the app, so.
Well, you wouldn't. I mean, you just talk to it. You don't have to do anything. You don't have to hit a button or dig through anything or click through endless menus. It's just like, this is me. I want this, and it's like, all right.
They've also mentioned that, and this is a little scary because I mean, we just talked about all the data leaks, but possibly putting a credit card on file, so that your drive-through experience is like you drive up and you say the usual, and then you drive through, and they give you your food, and you're out. You minimize the interface with the humans. Again,
if the AI were trustworthy, if I trusted Google with everything, that would actually be really awesome, because my AI, it's like, hey, the McDonald's AI would like to authorize a transaction for $11. Do you okay that? And if it's in the voice of my AI and not the McDonald's AI, it's like, yes, sounds good, helper bot 5000. Go ahead and authorize that. I would feel better about that type of a credit card transaction, and it's all in the way that it's presented to the end user, regardless of what's happening mechanically under the hood.
And then your helper bot gives you a government-mandated 5-minute lecture on trans fats.
Yeah.
And your insurance bot comes in. It's like, really? Really, bro?
Yeah, exactly.
Well, we talked about robocalls and how Ajit Pai is pledging to strike them down, although I'm still getting them. AT&T has decided that they are simply going to block all fraud calls. But there's a catch.
It's only for new customers. Existing customers are going to have to wait. This is code for the system is not perfect, and we've got to work out some bugs. And so new customers are going to be the guinea pig, while we're also telling them that if they switch from an existing carrier to us, they get the cool new stuff.
Yeah, and I think there are definitely people out there who would be willing to switch to get rid of robocalls.
Yes.
So probably could convert some people. It's but I can't imagine that you couldn't just turn that on for everybody with a flick of a switch. I mean,
well, what's going to happen is a lot of automated calls are legit going to be blocked. Like Anthem and Humana and those companies are going to just shutter a whole bunch of people's health insurance, and they're going to be like, "Oops, guess our call was blocked. We tried to call you."
Again, we need to move so that anything done over the phone is non-binding.
Yeah,
you're going to have to do it a different way.
I have to do it electronically. I mean, it should be done online anyway, because that's way more secure than the phone and easier. Except for old people that would struggle with that.
Now, I knew that you added this story, not only because I added all the other stories, but because this is a rabbit hole AMD story, and only an AMD shill would have snuck this in.
AnandTech has the story. It's like, no, AMD still is not enabling PCI Express 4 on 300 and 400 series boards. This is by Ryan Smith at AnandTech. And so some of the, the new boards are out, the 570 boards, and they're kind of expensive compared to previous gen boards. And some companies like Asus have started enabling PCI Express 4 on some of their older motherboards, but that there are actually a lot of engineering challenges for that, and it will be a bad user experience for everybody, but the most in the know people that would try to run PCI Express 4 on an older board, because the signaling is very problematic on older boards unless you have things like redrivers and stuff like that. And so AMD is saying, we don't want to take the chance on a bad customer experience. Just don't enable it. We've done the tests. Just don't do it. And Asus is like, well, we'll leave it on, and if it works for you, great. And if not, well, here's where to turn it off. And I'm kind of on the fence. I kind of get what AMD is doing, but I kind of get what Asus is doing too. So it's a mess either way.
Speaking of engineering failure and bad news for early adopters, the new Raspberry Pi, if you ran out and bought it, you're gonna be kicking yourself.
Raspberry Pi admits to a faulty USB-C design on the Pi 4. I expect this will be fixed in a future board revision, says the creator. So if you have a USB-C charger that is intelligent, it does not shake hands correctly with the USB-C design on the Raspberry Pi 4. It's down to a resistor. There's a couple of 5.7K resistors that should be in the design. It's in the reference design. They changed it, and I don't know why. There's a royalty-free reference design for how you implement a USB-C charger. They didn't do it.
Well, they took 2 down to 1. They were literally trying to save 1 cent. I mean, you got to imagine, what's the margin on a Raspberry Pi?
It's $35.
Yeah, I mean, you're making money any way you can. So they probably thought, well, this is brilliant. It's going to save us a lot of money. And they tested it with all the cables they had in the office, and it was fine.
Yeah, lower end USB-C cables are fine, but if you try to use your laptop charger on it, it's not going to work.
They do mention the one it comes with is okay. So you're not going to have a non-functional Raspberry Pi, but you might have like a really nice long cable that just mysteriously doesn't work. That's why. We have talked about the ubiquity of the streaming service and how the value that was Netflix is being torn apart by everybody's creating their own. Everybody wants to be Netflix, and they're clawing back all of their content. Friends was the big one.
Yeah.
That was announced this week, that apparently there are people who just watch Friends in the office over and over and over on Netflix. Netflix Aspies. And hey, I got no problem with that. Whatever makes you happy. But these companies who have previously sold those IPs are like, wait a minute. I mean, people just sit and watch this over and over? We want it back. And they claw it back and they create their own thing. And there's another one.
WarnerMedia confirms its Netflix rival will be called HBO Max. The soon-to-be exclusive streaming home for Friends is coming in spring of 2020. I hope this fails spectacularly.
I don't know. They mention the stuff that it has. A lot of this stuff, and I'm out of touch. I'll be the first to admit it. But a lot of this stuff I've never heard. Okay, we got Batwoman, Katie Keene, Riverdale, no idea, Greg Berlanti, and Reese Witherspoon. Oh, Reese Witherspoon. She's a big hitter in Hollywood these days. You ever hear the dash cam footage of her getting a DUI? Or her husband's getting a DUI. And she's like, do you know who I am? DC Entertainment, TBS, Turner Classic Movies, Adult Swim. I didn't realize it. So does that mean, oh yeah, Cartoon Network.
Cartoon Network.
So, Looney Tunes, oh man. If they have the whole Looney Tune library.
We need the dark Looney Tunes.
I might be tempted. Yeah, you got to give me Song of the South or I'm not interested. I need the purity of that. Oil is evil, as we've learned. It's a dark, horrible future that we keep using oil. Everybody's going to die from climate change. And the tech companies don't just use oil for transportation and things like that. They got to make plastic. Got to make things out of plastic, and plastic is bad. Plastic kills sea turtles. So what are you going to do about it? Well, Panasonic has a plan.
Panasonic is going to tap plants to develop green appliances. High production costs concerns shift away from petroleum-based plastics. So anybody that's been doing 3D printing with PLA, plant-based plastics are the future, or something. I mean, there's actually a lot of problems. But Panasonic is adopting them for their appliances, so that's good.
But they're both the future and not the future. Because being made of plants, they do biodegrade.
Yeah.
So they talk about how if you have, let's say, a refrigerator, a plant-based refrigerator, you just throw it away. Which, this scares me because it's definitely going to lend the planned obsolescence thing more.
Yeah.
Right? I mean, there's going to be literally no... It's like, okay, pull out the housing that houses all of the electronics and then just chuck that away and we'll send you a new one.
Well, can you imagine, in the future, like 100 or 200 years from now, will we ever enter a point where you're assigned your fridge at birth and that's your fridge from the time you're born until the time that you die? Because the technology has progressed to the point that, like, we're not inventing a new, better fridge every generation.
I don't think so, because then, we would have to get to your fantasy Star Trek space communism where companies aren't competing anymore, because there's always going to be somebody finding a reason to sell you a new fridge.
That's crazy. I mean, maybe, I don't know. I'm thinking about, like, heirloom furniture. Like, I've got a few bookshelves that, like, my great-grandfather made, and it's like, as far as I'm concerned, they're the pinnacle of bookshelf technology.
Yeah, but a bookshelf really isn't technology. It's just a box.
It's a box with some shelves and maybe some carvings, and it's like
more of a shape.
It's like, wow, the person that made this is a craftsman. I want to say that about a fridge. Like, this person has made the most amazing fridge ever.
We got to hope that eventually we'll have cooling that uses less and less bad stuff, right? Or even the power, the way that you power it. Like, power efficiency, I guess, is the only really new thing that we're gaining right now.
Yeah.
But if that keeps getting better, then you're always going to want a more efficient one, right?
Well, it was kind of a black hole there. I mean, some of the early fridges, that used insanely terrible things for the environment were actually fairly efficient. There was a dark time there where we realized it was killing the planet, and we used worse materials that used a lot more energy. And only in the last 15 years, things have actually gotten better again.
Well, yeah, I mean, leaded gasoline was great. Not for people.
Not for people.
But for cars. This story, this cracked me up because, like, so few people care about this. And then I love, let's scroll down and show the actual solution.
Goodbye, Aberration. A physicist has solved a 2,000-year-old optical problem.
Go ahead.
So this is exciting because any lens that you buy for cameras and whatever is going to have aberrations, and that's because light enters like the side of the lens, and you gotta correct for that. And so you see on a lens that it's got so many aspherical elements, and the aspherical elements are empirically correcting for aberrations produced from the spherical lens. And this has been a problem since like the time of Galileo. This physicist has figured out mathematically how to produce a lens. This is going to be great for mass production that does not suffer from aberration. It's a mathematical solution to the aberration problem. So we can have lenses that are completely aberration free, which also should mean that lenses get way cheaper.
It was kind of interesting though, because they had this fellow here, they kind of gave him the credit for it, but then they explained in the article that he called up another guy and bullied him into actually solving the problem. I have a picture of that guy.
Yeah, well, it was like I need your help to work on this problem. I think I've got a solution here. Let's see if this is actually this is a thing that actually makes sense. And it turns out, yeah, it does. So we should be able to have very low cost aberration free lenses for photography and videography very soon.
Woo. Will people still complain?
Yes, absolutely. No doubt.
Being out of focus sometimes.
No doubt.
Oh, moving on to social media. It has, we talk about the dark times of YouTube, and we are in the darkest of times.
We really are.
And one of the worst things about YouTube right now is the copyright claim, because no matter how long your video is or how short the violation is, the proposed violation, you aren't told anything about it. It's just like, hey,
you may not be.
You're wrong. Go fix it. And you're like, well, what do I need to fix? Well, now maybe that's going to get a little better.
They've said that they're going to make it easier for creators to deal with copyright claims by forcing manual copyright claims to identify the specific time or times in the video where there's a copyright problem. And so if they do that at the time they're making the claim, you can elect to snip that part out or mute it or whatever to address the issue really quickly. A lot of big creators get these kind of manual claims, and it's like the reasons for it are tenuous at best. And so it's a situation where the big creator's like, all right, just cut that part of the video out. I don't even want to argue about it. Just move on. And so YouTube thinks that if this will better define like what the copyright violation is. And so if you have a big, like a record label or copyright cartel that is continually abusing their access, then maybe this would be more evidence that they are abusing their access and would have their access cut.
Well, also on the plus side, I think the good thing this is going to do is it's going to force those people to make their reporting systems, which are just pure AI, better. It's going to be harder for them to shotgun out those things because now they're going to have to provide more information. And it's not, if it hears 30 seconds of a song in the background of a restaurant where you're filming in, then they're going to have to like actually map out how long it is. And if it's broken up by other noises, that's going to be interesting to see how that goes. Facebook is good at sort of shaping the narrative. We've certainly seen that. And they've got the AI. They've got the warehouses full of people who are watching the horrible things to try to get rid of them. But it turns out they have two very special programs. What do those programs deal with? They deal with news about Facebook.
So Bloomberg has an article about how Facebook fought fake news about Facebook. Polling data and secretive projects Storm Chaser and Night's Watch helped the social media giant track public sentiment and respond to it. So the headline says that this is fake news about Facebook, but these projects were absolutely about tracking real news about Facebook as well.
Yeah, I don't know. I don't think fake news necessarily entered into this. But it just shows how good they are at not only identifying when there's news about them, but then trying to take control and shape how that's interpreted.
It was almost like you would see a news story that was like, Facebook is literally, Facebook's executives literally feast on the blood of young children or whatever, and then they would get a thing in the newsroom, and it'd be like, all right, we've got the next thing that we're gonna have a public thing. It's like, now you may have heard that we eat the blood of young children, but that's not true because this, and this, and it's like only a crazy person would think this. And so they really just subtly change the way that they present information to head a lot of that stuff off, even before it becomes really widely known. It also gave them great intel on what things were leaking out and what things weren't, because remember Zuckerberg was saying, this memo may come to light, or he was aware of this other memo, Cambridge Analytica, and so they could be on top of exactly what the media knew to respond to some of that preemptively and to appear to be very forthcoming with things, but not actually be more forthcoming than stuff that was already publicly known, if that makes sense.
Terrifying. It's another check mark, though, in the box of they know exactly what they're doing. It's not, they're not making mistakes. They're getting caught. And Facebook makes a lot of money. And one way that you could sort of measure, it's like, does my company make a lot of money, right? Like, how do I know if my company relatively makes a lot of money? And here is one surefire way that I'm going to give you. If you get a fine for $5 billion, and that's good news, you make a lot of money.
Facebook stock hits highest price in nearly a year after reports of a $5 billion FTC fine. So I guess everybody was worried that the fine would be more than that. So that's roughly 1/4's profits.
Break out the champagne.
I think they did.
$5 billion fine. Now, a lot of people did argue about this FTC fine. They're saying it wasn't good enough. I think it's the FTC, like the FCC, is 3-2 Republicans versus Democrats. And they voted party lines to agree to this. I think Facebook might have written a lot of this. They also, I think this wraps it all up. So there's not going to be, I think there could be more. We don't know the contents of the agreement, but there probably won't be. This will probably be the end of it.
Yeah.
And that, knowing that it's over, is totally worth $5 billion to the Zuck.
Yeah, this is not really a lot of money for them. And it's kind of depressing because it was almost like, having done this, it was worth it. Like, the economics of the transaction were, would Cambridge Analytica happen again today? And the economics of this particular situation, yeah, absolutely, why not? It was a profitable, it's like, we rolled the dice and won. Why wouldn't you do that?
PR was bad. But they didn't really lose that many users.
Doesn't seem like it.
But they did lose one user. And I'm going to tell you up front, this was clickbait and it got me. Because I don't read these stories as I'm putting them in. And
it's TMZ. How did you not know?
We prune them later. But I saw that and I was like, oh, that sounds interesting. It turns out this was as big a nothing burger as it could be. They just caught him in an airport and got a quick quote.
Yeah, so Steve Wozniak was traveling out of the same airport as, I guess, this reporter. And his message for the reporter was, get off of Facebook. The privacy concerns scare me. Mostly this is around, Wozniak is convinced that it's listening all the time for mostly anecdotal reasons, and that there's not really a lot of oversight or insight into how the company operates internally. I would say that it's probably true that Facebook is actually listening all the time, if not for personal assistant reasons, just for that marketing data. And listening all the time is not necessarily listening with the microphone. Could be browser data or other types of data. So yeah, he's not wrong, but there's not any new information here.
Yeah, so it's good advice.
Yeah.
You should take it. But anybody could tell you that. Maybe you respect the Woz more than your average person. So, if that story gets 30 people off of Facebook,
It was worth it.
I'll forgive TMZ for their clickbait bullshit.
Let us know in the comments below. Were you able to show your grandpa or your parents the thing, and then they were like, "Oh yeah, I'm gonna stop using
Grandpa
it."
doesn't know who Steve Wozniak is. Instagram. Now, let's say that you are on Instagram and you're one of these influencers, right? And the last thing that you want to do is anger your followers, because you need that sweet influencer money. But you're kind of tone deaf when it comes to social issues, right?
No, a famous person on the internet that's tone deaf? No.
Like, let's say that you're going to, I don't know, film a corpse in a forest. And you don't know that that's a bad idea. Well, Instagram's got your back.
Or carry a camera into the bathroom or, whatever. So The Hill says that Instagram is going to notify users comments might be offensive before they are posted. So this is not the influencer so much as the person that's commenting on the influencer's stuff.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I imagine it catches the post text as well, right?
I noticed that Twitch was doing it. So, the other day when I was streaming the testing of the Ryzen 3800X, in the title it was like 3800X versus 9900K, something, F clock something. And Twitch was like, this title's probably offensive. You shouldn't go with this title. It may violate Twitch's terms. And it's like, what?
Yeah. Twitch has definitely fallen to the reds. But, I think this would be interesting. Just like, remember that Google had that interface where you could put stuff in and it would give it an offensive rating? Like, I would love to just punch stuff in and see, like, does it think that's offensive? Where's the line and how close can I get to it?
There were some really hilarious things in there where it was just like at one point, weren't we putting in completely innocent words and it was like, that's very offensive. It's like toaster oven. It's like, no, you cannot say that.
Well, you could just get it close to something bad, and weird things would set it off. I would love to look at the code behind how that's figured out.
It's probably just a big black box of AI. It's like, I don't know. We gave it to 4chan, and then this is what we got back.
Well, here's the thing about Instagram and their influencers. One of the reasons they might be extra concerned about turning people off with their posts and comments is because of this.
Instagram influencer engagement hovers near all-time lows, the study says. Yeah, everybody's gone over to TikTok. I don't know what to tell you.
This is like Uncanny Valley. What's going on here?
Like the makeup artist thing.
But that looks like a mannequin.
Makeup artist is a thing on Instagram. I wish Krista was here. She could explain it to us.
That's horrific. So yeah, it turns out, now this is mobilemarketer.com. So this is not like a news piece. This is a marketing news site who's like, hey, if you're thinking about marketing on Instagram, think again. So they point out that actually people with lower followings get higher percentage of engagement, but it never breaks 10%.
Yeah.
So if someone has 1,000 followers and you're paying them, you're paying to reach about 90 people.
Join the Level 1 Patreon at patreon.com/level1 and get a new level of personal service. Personal interaction. I don't know.
This story I thought was going to be darkly funny, like the Darwin Award type stuff, but I'm not sure how much the video factored into it. It turned out just to be sad.
Yeah. Man drowns in lake outside Hyderabad as cousin shoots a TikTok video. So I guess they were trying to shoot a video here. This is kind of a follow-up to... was it last week where it was like Instagram? People are trying to get Instagram pictures and they're doing all sorts of really just dumb things and getting themselves killed.
It turned out India was the worst place for it. Was you're more likely to die on Instagram than to be eaten by a shark.
Wow.
Yeah.
And so we thought this was going to be like that, but this, like you say, this just ended up being sad.
They did point out that the guy filming swam away to get help. Was like, well, just drop the phone, and maybe I don't understand the context. But sad. Maybe
warning, to anybody out there in the audience that's trying to build that Instagram following, don't be dumb.
Yeah, and plus, if let's say that was a sponsored video, He didn't even get any good engagement for that.
Well, he's world famous now, but
Infamous.
Yeah.
And speaking of Instagram influencers, this is a story that is just incredible because it shows that on Instagram,
Nothing is real.
It's all perception.
Yeah.
Of course, that's true for the most governments as well.
Yeah.
But people will do anything for the perception of a certain thing on Instagram when it is almost never the reality.
Picturesque waste dump with turquoise water now a destination for Instagram photos. You have to see how unnatural looking this water is.
I mean, it does look nice.
So that water is actually caustic to human skin.
It's highly alkaline because it is from was it a sawmill or a mine or something?
Yeah, it's wastewater.
So there's some kind of chemical that's causing this beautiful color. And they recommend you not actually submerge yourself in it for any reason. But there's the plant. It doesn't look as nice over there, does it? Look how blue it is right there. Oh, it's beautiful. Oh, look at that.
Yeah,
wonderful.
Obviously.
What a great picture. So
it's terrible. This is very bad.
Look at this tree just dying in it. It's like, it should show you something. But
it's just terrible. It's terrible.
When you see an influencer behind that beautiful turquoise water, you might know that their skin is sloughing off at the moment after they're taking these photos. Do you think, now these people, they didn't have to touch the water, but do you think like they fell in or anything?
I think they probably got a little bit of water, but they need to hose off immediately. So
I didn't know there were more pictures here. Wow.
That's just terrible. Oh, you clicked on it.
Oh, I've gone to Instagram.
No.
That was a mistake.
That was bad.
All right, well, that's all we got for social media. Tomorrow or Friday will be robots and nonsense.
Woo! See you Friday. It's Friday, July 19th. July is almost gone.
Barely got to enjoy it. It's been so hot.
Yes.
So hot.
Our air conditioner's working overtime.
I got my electric bill yesterday. It's up there. As usual, we're on the edge of being hip on YouTube talking about the weather and utility bills. But instead, let's talk about robots and artificial intelligence. And to be honest, I broadened out the category a little bit this week and added in like 3D printing as well, because there wasn't a lot.
Yeah.
And there were some interesting 3D printing stories. But first, let's talk about Facebook and how they're branching out. They're not just stealing your data. No, they're working on AI as well.
Facebook's AI Pluribus defeats top poker professionals in a 6-player Texas Hold'em. So they played a couple of different ways here with human players and 2 human players versus like 4 or 5 AI bots. But yeah, they've got an AI now that can play poker better than the best human players.
Here's the thing. The AI's always been able to beat you at poker, but it's struggled at playing large games, especially when the humans knew that there was a robot. And these humans did know. And they did try to screw with it in certain ways. And they agreed beforehand. It's like, hey, let's agree to bet crazy sometimes just to mess with the computer. Computer didn't care. And it won by like $1.7 million.
Yeah.
So not statistically insignificant. It won by a pretty long shot.
I'm pretty sure that this software needs to exist. Like, there's probably somebody that has better AI software. That's just some guy working in his garage that was playing online poker long before the Facebook AI.
Well, they talk about the threat that this could pose to online poker. Because wouldn't it be funny if at some point, without the online casino realizing it, there's just 7 AI playing against their dealer?
Their dealer's not going to do well.
So that's interesting. This next story, it's very interesting, but it also brings up kind of a terrifying thing that I hadn't previously thought of. I mean, well, I read that book, and it gets into some of that. But if you think about going to Mars, a lot of us romanticize it, right? But we don't think about the horrible things that are going to be on Mars, like open latrines, going months without showers, but also injuries and that sort of frontier medicine that's going to be going on.
A lot of frontier medicine
On those Martian colonies. But some of that frontier medicine will be surprisingly high-tech, maybe, if they have these.
Scientists 3D print human skin and bone for Mars astronauts. Mars explorers could turn to 3D printers to treat burns and broken bones. So the 3D printing skin part is pretty cool because you basically print a lattice and then skin cells grow into the lattice. So that's pretty awesome. And then bone, it's a bone material. So these are not like new technologies in and of themselves, but being able to do this in like a space faring situation is a great way to have this kind of medical technology without it also taking up a lot of space and weight.
They also tested this on the space station because the way we would normally do that kind of thing is nearly liquid at some phase, and in zero gravity, it might just float away. So they had to make it a little more viscous throughout the process in order to keep it like, on the plate. And but they figured it out. So good news for you Martian pioneers.
The frontier medicine's not going to be quite as bad as it was at the turn of the 19th century, but close. Very close.
It'll still be hip surgery without anesthetic, but afterwards, your hip will be really nice. So,
will it though?
We always talk about AI in terms of, the fear of the aware AI. And this story points out just how far we are from that. Even though they are talking about a new milestone, it really just points out that AI has no idea what's going on, even when it's right.
Alibaba has claimed a new record in AI language understanding. So if you have this AI go through a reading comprehension test, it does really, really well, but without actually comprehending anything of what it read.
Yeah, it actually, basic questions, so you can ask it, what is this? And if the answer to what is this is in the material, it can pretty often suss that out and tell you that's what that is. But it really has no understanding of what it's telling you. It's just doing it all based on the language, which is impressive, but not the Terminator.
Or maybe that is the Terminator, and that's why they're so relentless.
It could be, yeah.
Because, couldn't the Terminator just load up in a spaceship and go to another planet and be fine? They don't have to. They can leave us to our terribleness on here on planet Earth.
But why not both?
Yeah.
They have an unlimited supply, right? And speaking of AI and the fact that they really don't understand what's going on, but sometimes not understanding what's going on kind of works in their favor because they can just blindly make logical leaps that we never would, but probably should have.
AI trained on old scientific papers makes discoveries that humans missed. So scientists use machine learning to reveal new scientific knowledge hidden in old research papers. One of the examples they cite is the production of electricity from waste heat. It's like, what sort of materials would be conducive to producing electricity from waste heat? And I immediately thought about microprocessor cooling, although the temperatures involved are probably hundreds of degrees C, if not thousands. So it's a little different situation. And the AI, it's basically a giant word association net, was able to suggest other materials that were actually viable for that type of materials research.
Well, they didn't really find new ones. What they did is they sent it back in time, essentially. They fed it old stuff. And so without knowing that this new thing was discovered in 2012, the AI discovered it in like 2004.
Yeah.
Just from the papers, which is pretty impressive. So they're thinking about turning this thing loose in a variety of fields and priming it to see what it can figure out.
Unfortunately, the quality of our scientific papers have gone down dramatically since 2004. So
yeah, everything that it looks at from 2019, it always goes back to gender politics. Because that's all scientific papers are about. That and climate change. That's all we've got at this point in scientific papers. Remember the self-driving shuttle in Las Vegas? We had that harrowing video of a truck very, very slowly backing into it. Well, that was November of 2017. They've just now figured out why that happened.
The self-driving shuttle crash in Vegas happened because the manual controls were locked away. Even then, this headline is wrong. The headline, that is not what happened. If you read the thing, what actually happened was the delivery truck driver backed into the self-driving thing. That is it.
Yeah. The car stopped, as you would expect a self-driving car to stop. And the self-driving car cannot be faulted for thinking, okay, I'm stopped. this person should not back into me as I'm stopped. But the truck driver did anyway. But what they're talking about here is the controller for this thing is actually an Xbox 360 controller.
Yeah.
And the military's using those now too.
Yeah.
It's like, well, they've had years of design to figure out what works best, right? Why not? But the Xbox 360 controller was locked in a box, which was the protocol for whatever reason.
Yeah, it's like, oh, you could. So the driver and one of the passengers knew the truck was about to back into them, and they could have moved the car if they had access to the manual controls, but they didn't.
All they had was an emergency stop button, which worked. But so now, I don't know if they even
the headline remains is like the self-driving thing crashed. It's like, no, the self-driving thing didn't do a thing. It was the delivery truck driver.
Inert car attacks delivery truck. But I don't know if they're still testing this thing, but after that, they agreed maybe we shouldn't lock up the controller.
Yeah.
There could be situations where you need. I guess the fear was somebody would just be joyriding around with the Xbox controller.
Yeah, a drunk in Vegas gets on one of these things and is like, woo. Yeah, I could totally see that happening. That's a thing that would happen.
The wheel is still the superior way to drive a vehicle.
Yes.
Come on. I did not know that Chris was not going to be here this week. I think on some level I did, but who can keep track? And so I threw this in here because I knew she would love it. But it is impressive what they have done with 3D printing.
This tiny house was 3D printed and built in less than 48 hours. I saw this and thought that this would be like if I have, some forested area that's out away from everything and I want to get away for a while. This is it. Like I could do this. This is something that I would like to have just in the middle of nowhere. This is a place that I can go to get away from everything. This looks amazing.
Well, it cost you $10,000. I think they're looking to get it down to 4.
Yeah, 4 is a little more palatable, but still, that's a really good deal.
I don't know what the, because if you look at the ridges in the wall, do you think that could be concrete?
Yeah, that's probably how they 3D printed it, and they just painted the inside of it. You could stucco that and make it smooth if you really want, but I don't care. It's fine.
Yeah. I mean, it looks nice.
A lot of wood for the top part.
I imagine the wood is not included in the 48-hour.
Probably not. And the poles are probably holding the roof on because one good strong gust of wind would come and it would just pop the top right off that thing.
Although they did talk about these for hurricane-prone areas. So, although that is a lot of surface area for something to just get under there.
Yeah.
I don't know. Pretty cool. And they are also aiming to get the time to print lower. Although, I mean, are people really like, it's like, it's been 24 hours. When do I get my house? That seems like,
This seems like this would be a good way to deal with like homeless populations and homeless shelters too.
Well, I think it's more the land than the structure.
Structure, yeah. Well, I mean, just put them in the desert. Just
yeah, because that's humane. just lay out here and dehydrate.
Well, it's like 10 minutes outside of any Californian city.
10 minutes by car, right? Cars that these people don't have every day. Well, they keep them busy, right? Because they got to walk in for their water ration and then walk back.
They'll be the fittest population ever.
We've talked about the controversy of the assistants. This week it was Google, but it's been Alexa a lot of times in the past. And we've also seen that Amazon more and more wants Alexa in your car. They want her in every room of your house. They want her in new homes. And how could you get more Alexa, more Echo in your life? Well, Amazon has an answer for that too.
Amazon continues to work on mobile home robot as it preps a new high-end Echo, says report. And the picture they've got here is terrifying. Yeah, like it's just it's Timmy.
So apparently this little guy just follows you around in case you need to communicate with Alexa when you're pooping or something like that. I don't know. I mean, you're never going to be out of earshot. And I imagine you could throw in a lot of robotics is for older people who are at risk, right? So maybe if grandma falls down, Timmy immediately notifies somebody. That could be good.
That's Timmy's not actually from Amazon, but it can integrate with Alexa. So,
Yeah, but Amazon is working on their own version, which
something like
it's
this.
so early. I don't even think they have any kind of mock-up or anything.
I mean, how crazy is it going to be when you've got a Roomba that's Alexa integrated?
That'd be too noisy.
Well, it's just, it can turn itself off and just wander into a room and be like, do you need anything? It's like, nope. What was the artist that was famous in like the 1950s for painting Americans not as an ideal, but like as they were? I can't remember. Is it Ansel Adams? No, that's not right. So he did a bunch of magazine covers. I wonder if some of the contract workers that have the recordings from Amazon, like if one of those is going to become famous as an artist because like they have a recording of like, a husband and wife just yelling at each other at the top of their lungs, and it's like, this is America. And it's just completely unfiltered because the robots, it's like America through the eyes of their robot servants. Might be a landmark like thing like the thing was in the 50s.
I don't think anybody, well, do you think there are a lot of people who don't know that that's how it is?
Yes.
Where do those people live?
I mean, they assume that they're the only ones that are massively dysfunctional.
Yeah, well, there is that, like they say that romantic comedies are the greatest enemy of relationships on the female side, and hardcore pornography is the greatest relationship enemy on the male side, because they both create such unrealistic expectations. It really is somewhere in the middle. If you're a big fan of StarCraft, you might have an interesting new player on the ladder soon, and you probably won't like encountering this player.
DeepMind, StarCraft 2 AI will soon take on regular players without telling them. OpenAI's Dota 2 bots took the public in April, and it went poorly for the humans. Yeah, StarCraft is hard to play. The AI is doing an amazing job.
Yeah, and I think DeepMind beat what they called pros, but it wasn't like the best of the best pros. It was some people who were probably on the down curve of their reaction time, but still impressive.
Yeah.
So I think on the ladder, that's got to be like 90% of the players this thing's going to encounter.
How cool would it be? It's like if you're suspected of playing with a bot, you secretly get one of these things, and if you manage to beat this, it's like, oh yeah, that guy's definitely playing with a bot.
Now you can opt out of it. There is a checkbox that you're going to have to whether or not you might get the AI. It's also going to be, I think, a fairly low chance, but they're trying to get more data from the average StarCrafter. So I like StarCraft, but it's just so taxing. It's exhausting to try to play StarCraft because, especially when you're trying to pick it up at this point, where most of the people who play it are hardcore.
Seasoned people that have been playing it for 20 years.
Yeah, you got to get in it. That's like when we play Overwatch with Krista, and her matchmaking ranking drags it up, and then we're playing with people. It's like we're just a couple of normies and just getting dominated. It's not fun. So yeah, that's I've missed my chance there. Too bad. Moving on to nonsense now. This story, the only thing I love about this story is the word plunets. I love the word plunets. It's so satisfying to say.
Science News says that moons that escape their planets could soon become plunets. So this is Super Troopers. Is that the movie where he's saying meow instead of now? That's what plunets is.
Well, yeah. I mean, it's an interesting word because usually you take the whole beginning of one word or the whole end of another word. But here you're just replacing the vowels.
Yeah.
But it is amazing. Plunets is a great word. And they're just talking about how sometimes a moon will escape.
Ours is going to escape eventually.
And just go rogue and then becomes a plunet. But plunets are not long-lived because they're kind of like free radicals out there. They get captured by something or they fall into the sun or whatever.
Didn't somebody model, like, when our moon escapes from its orbit, it will probably re-enter the Earth's orbit and collide with the Earth? And that would probably be bad.
That was something I think they mentioned that happened a lot. And yeah, that would be an extinction event, I would think. Yeah. What a way to go. But now, on a time scale, will that happen before the sun cools to a dangerous degree?
No, I don't think so. I think it's before the sun is going to engulf our planet, by turning into a red giant, but it is likely that we will have already undergone a lot of bad things from other changes that are happening inside the star.
Mm-hmm. I guess that'll be a problem for the Martian colonists, won't it?
We could go the wandering Earth thing and just strap a bunch of rockets to Earth and just pilot it somewhere else.
What are we going to use for fuel?
The rocks and the Earth itself.
I don't think that's how fuel works. it's interesting because we're getting into a world where drugs are being decriminalized and legalized in a lot of places. Where is the place where mushrooms are legal now? Is that Colorado?
Is it?
There's one state where mushrooms are okay.
It might be Colorado, I think, then.
So, but in Germany, a very rich man has taken mushrooms, and now he has made it his goal in life to bring it to the masses.
The psychedelics evangelist in Scientific American, a German financier, wants to turn magic mushrooms into modern medicine. So he's talking about how these psychedelics could actually treat PTSD and other things like that. So he traveled somewhere that these were legal and tried them and was like, wow, this was life changing. We need to do more of this. And it kind of reminded me about some of the stuff that Joe Rogan has said from. Was it Joe Rogan or one of his guests? I don't even remember.
No, Joe Rogan is a big proponent of psychedelics, and he claims that if you get in your sensory deprivation tank and you're high on, I think DMT is the one that he talks about, but it's pure super ego, like all instinct and present self goes away, and you're just like on this higher place. And that's what this guy describes. And when you come back from that, you have a whole different outlook on life. So,
well, if it's, a less depressed outlook on life, I would say like half the U.S. population probably needs that.
Now, the other side of that coin, of course, is the people who take it and like shoot themselves or something. Although that could be purity of whatever it is or dosage or whatever. And so you imagine that if they're doing it like this, they would have a scientific way of approaching that.
You could do it as a resort. That could be a theme resort where you just show up and then.
Well, that's the. You can go to South America and do the what's the name of it? Ayahuasca.
Oh yeah.
Because it's sort of a religious thing.
Yeah.
And so you go down there and you go to the shaman.
The guy that wrote the Fingerprints of the Gods did that. I think.
Yeah. That guy's got some crazy stories. But yeah, I don't know if I would be tempted to do an LSD weekend or a mushroom weekend.
My brain barely functions as it is. I don't want to disturb that.
That is something like, it's sort of like having kids, right? When I come out the other side of it, I know that chemically I'm going to be changed. And I might like that. But would now Ryan like post-mushroom Ryan? And does that matter? There's a lot of really high-level questions.
Does pre-mushroom Ryan cease to exist? Does he die, in a sense?
Because I know, like, post-kids Ryan, current Ryan would not like. I'm assuming that I would undergo that change where I didn't hate them. I don't think everybody does that, though. I think some people are pretending. I don't want to take that risk.
I can't tolerate things that mess with my sleep schedule.
Oh, don't get cats, then. This is a great feel-good story about Uber and wildlife.
Drunk man sends injured baby bird to wildlife rescue center in an Uber. So this is pretty cool. The guy was drunk, but he had the presence of mind to just call an Uber, and it's just like, here's a baby bird, take it to the wildlife center. Your destination is already programmed.
Well, he called the wildlife center, and he explained to them that he was a little drunk, and they discovered this bird while they were out drinking, and he wanted to get the bird to the wildlife center, but of course, being a responsible consumer of alcohol, he wasn't going to hop in the car. Now, he mentioned that a couple of Uber drivers showed up and then turned him down. They would not transport the bird.
Interesting.
I mean, I guess the bird could poop, but I think it was in a container or something. So
it was an injured baby bird.
I don't know, but everything played out. Eventually, they got an Uber driver who was happy to deliver him. Look at him.
I'm glad it wasn't a pigeon, because that would have been a waste.
I don't know what kind of bird it was. But yeah, all is well. The bird, we assume, is still alive. Wonder what that costs. Did they say how much the Uber drive costs?
I don't think so.
That would be a good thing to put in your story. Cake.com. Cake. I guess that's just the call letters.
The cake is a lie.
Of that local affiliate. Man, I'm terrible at figuring out which is the active tab. It changed the color scheme here.
Oh, yeah. This story was great.
So we see a lot more and more people, the law enforcement using Facebook and Twitter and stuff as a way to try and track down criminals. And because of the nature of the attention whoring and social media, The criminals will often respond to their own dragnet posts, and that's what happened here.
So, a woman wanted for second-degree murder comments on the photo that the police released of her, and she said, "That picture ugly." It me.
So yeah, she didn't care for that picture.
She's suspected for murder in Louisiana.
Second degree murder. I wonder what the extenuating circumstance was that made it second degree. In any case, she posted that she didn't like the picture. They invited her to come down, and they'd take another one, which she eventually did show up.
Wow.
Yeah. But there was also a $1,000 reward, so she had to think that somebody was.
Do you get the reward if you turn yourself in?
I don't think so. I don't think that's how that works. Wow. If that was true, people would be committing crimes just to see how much of a reward they could get. You know, they'd be on the run. We talk a lot about Area 51. You know, you mentioned the Fingerprints of the Gods guy.
Oh, yeah.
So Joe Rogan did a show with him that was very interesting because he went through all that stuff. And then Joe Rogan just recently did the Bob Lazar about the alien stuff. He claimed to work at Area 51.
Oh, yeah.
And that was... It's
looks like the half dome gravity manipulator thing.
Yeah, and it's probably, you got to think it's probably just bullshit, right? But it's really good world building. You know, it's like Tolkien level. He keeps his story straight, and he's got all the facts, and he has a really good, like, he should just write books. You know, he should do the L. Ron Hubbard thing, except in reverse, right?
It's like a Wheel of Time level of mythology here. Just get a writer in there.
But anyway, a lot of the stuff that he talked about, I think maybe that sparked some of this movement on Facebook.
Yeah, CNN Travel has this story about thousands of people, you know, taking to Facebook to pledge that they're going to storm Area 51 to see them aliens. I see this and I think, aren't there more important things people could be worried about? Like, there's a lot of, like, if we're going to storm somewhere, there's a lot of places we could storm and probably accomplish a lot more good.
Also, let's assume for a minute. Let's suspend all disbelief, right? Let's say Area 51 is packed with alien artifacts and vessels and everything that we can assume is true.
That's where they put the Ark of the Covenant
and
that Indiana Jones movie.
And they've gone to the greatest lengths to hide it from us all. This is supposed to take place in September. You don't think between now and September the secret alien government isn't going to move all that stuff out of there? I mean, come on. You got to do this as a surprise. One of the things they said about this is they can't shoot us all. Sir, I think they could. I think they
definitely could.
I mean, especially if they've got alien technology.
Yeah. Well, between the infrared goggles and a whole bunch of other things, you couldn't get within 2 miles, and they wouldn't be able to tell all of you individually. So... yeah,
that was the Bob Lazar. That's one of the things that he, in his story, he took some friends like just to the edge of the property, and they were just kind of like hanging out, looking at it and drinking. And he was like, "Yeah, that's where I work, and all this crazy stuff is there." And they immediately just descended on him, you know, because like, of course we're monitoring this, you idiot. Yeah. We often hear a lot about people who are addicted to gaming. And for whatever reason, they lose access to the game. There was that kid that his father was a cop, and he shot him because he wouldn't let him play.
Oh, yeah, he went out to the car, yeah.
Wouldn't buy him a console or something like that. Wasn't that what that was about?
Yeah.
And then there's kids who, you know, freak a Fortnite addiction thing where they just like won't eat and won't go to school and fight their parents and stuff like that. And this story is one of those taken to the extreme.
Sword-wielding gamer arrested after threatening people because of a power outage. He, quote, "I'm going to kill you," unquote. So this is from The Gamer. And the stock photo, I don't know.
That's Sephiroth.
Oh, yeah, from Final Fantasy VII.
Yeah.
Yeah.
The ultimate cool katana guy. I imagine if you're a katana guy, in your mind's eye, that's what you look like when you're in public with your katana.
I just think that he didn't have anything else better to do with his time, so he was just sort of going crazy.
Well, so what happened here was they had a contractor at their house doing some electrical work. And as you might do before you do electrical work, turned off the local power. And nobody had told Junior about this, I imagine because he was locked in his room 24 hours a day. And so in mid-game, he was cut off. and it sent him into this blind rage. It ultimately led to a police standoff.
Wow.
Yeah. But he did give up eventually.
Let's calm down a little bit.
I guess
I might have overreacted.
He realized he hadn't mastered the blade to the point that he could stop those 9mm bullets that the cops had. So discretion was the better part of swordsmanship that day.
Oh no, I missed this one. No.
Oh, it's pretty much what it says in the headline.
A 14-year-old has quit school to play Fortnite. But what are the details?
So here's the thing about it. This kid, you might think, well, who let this kid do this? Doesn't he need his parents' permission to do this? His dad claims, quote unquote, I've been breeding him for this. So the father has some sort of eBay business related to gaming. Maybe gaming paraphernalia or something like that or whatever. But you also get the impression that they've got a little bit of money because the kid's 14. He can't drive yet, but his father has already purchased him a Maserati with a personalized license plate that matches his gamer tag.
Wow.
Yeah. So he claims, this is the father claiming that the kid was sort of a dynamo when it came to video games, and at 3 he was playing video games and mastering them. And so he's like, yeah, he's on a Fortnite training regimen and he doesn't have time for regular school. He does 3 hours of online school in between Fortnite runs every day.
Well, that's one way to ride a bot.
But if your dad's got Maserati money, does it matter?
He's going to have his own merchandise line soon.
Yeah. I wonder if he streams.
He probably should.
That'd be one way to supplement that income, right?
Our next story didn't make any sense at all.
This is one of those stories where I put it in there before I read it. And after I read it, I was like, what did I just read? But I think I kind of understand it. I'll get your interpretation first.
U.S. court says the Night King from Game of Thrones was completely meaningless. So there was a court case, and the court case was about some random crap that doesn't matter. And the U.S. judge was like, look, the lawyers here are making arguments about this court case, but the matter before the court is this. All of this stuff in the argument doesn't matter. It's like the Night King from the last season of Game of Thrones.
That's exactly what. But because that is now in case law, then the U.S. court system has declared that the Night King never mattered. I guess. So
why?
If you want to sue the creators of the show,
spoiler alert, I guess, in case anybody hasn't seen it still. Sorry.
I mean, if you haven't watched the last season, don't. Just whatever's in your head that you think is going to happen is better. So I wouldn't poison that.
They did the Half-Life 3 thing. The whole reason there's no Half-Life 3 is because anything that they come up with is going to be disappointing, because the story has built, the Half-Life story, the Gordon Freeman story has built to such a point and such a degree that there is no satisfying end to that story.
Except there will be when he writes it. It would be like, okay, Valve and the original writers did Half-Life 1 and 2, but we let a litter of kittens with fetal alcohol syndrome write Half-Life 3. And somehow the story didn't turn out well.
I don't know. I don't know. My faith in George R.R. Martin is shaken to write a satisfying ending to that story.
I think he has the ability to write a satisfying ending. Does he have the ability to write it before he dies? That's the question. It's a race against time right now, or whatever disease is taking him out. You know, there's got to be something. We have a problem in this country with smartphones. The smartphone has destroyed some things. Like, I wonder about, bars do like trivia night. How do they enforce no phones for that?
They would have to, otherwise it would be too easy to cheat.
Yeah, it's too easy to cheat. And then, you think of things like game shows and stuff like that. I'm sure that you have to really control, like, of course the contestant doesn't have a phone, but what if somebody in the audience has one and there's some sort of signaling mechanism?
They're blinking out in Morse code the solutions.
Or like, imagine if it's what's the one that was multiple choice and you could phone a friend?
Who Wants to Be a Millionaire?
That's 4 choices. I could easily signal you one of 4 options from the audience, if you could see me easily.
Yeah.
So that kind of thing, you really have to think about how do we defend against this. And some of the oldest games are not immune.
Chess Grandmaster admits to cheating with a phone on the toilet during the tournament. So yeah, he went to the crapper and he was playing the game on his phone or whatever to try to win.
I get the impression that they do search you when you come in to sit down and when you come back from the bathroom. So he had hidden it there earlier, like Michael Corleone. And someone went into the bathroom after him and discovered it. Here's the interesting thing about the story. Somebody went back after they figured this out and dug up his performance, and somehow right around this time he got way better. Remarkably better. And so there's some question of like, has he been getting away with this for a little while? A dark day. He's retired. He admitted it, and he said that was his last chess game. He's done. Can't keep up. This story is astonishing.
On so many levels.
I mean, I'm right there with you on the front line. If you start shooting first in the SJW revolution to fight against the nonsense that we're living under, I'm ready. Start it tomorrow. But there is a counterweight to that. There is the other side that can be just as crazy. And we can't embrace them just because we hate what's happening now.
Newsweek has this headline, which is 1 million moms protest the Toy Story 4 over quote-unquote dangerous lesbian scene. So it's not even a scene. It's just in the background, there's a little girl that's dropped off by 2 women.
And we don't know that they're lesbians.
What
if they're sisters? What if it's a mother and a stepmother?
Or what if it's... Well, sisters is good too, because it's like the sisters are going off to high school or whatever, and they're dropping off their little sister at wherever this is.
But the comments that they make about like how horrific this is... Subtle in order to desensitize children. To what?
Is it though?
Obvious that the child has 2 mothers and they are parenting together. But is it? I don't know. Subtle but obvious promotion of the LGBTQ lifestyle.
Is it though?
I don't think it is.
I tried to watch the clip and I didn't see these things.
But it's also, it's part of that idea about like children should not be exposed to sex, for example, right?
But they weren't in the clip.
But what I'm saying is like, should we actually take that stance? Because is it at all possible for you to shield your children from that once they get out into the real world? There are lesbian couples and they might encounter them.
I'm pretty sure that children would be more exposed to sex through the Dick Van Dyke Show, where Laura and Dick slept in different bedrooms,
and they have to ask why.
Yeah. And that was more than whatever this was in the Toy Story clip.
But here's the thing: with what do you think the average age is that a kid gets a smartphone and/or tablet with the internet on it?
Oh gosh, like very young.
Because
before they're ready.
You think 5, 6?
Because it's not like you've reached a level of maturity. Here is your device. It is a game of exhaustion. The children will exhaust their parents, and it's like, here's this magic box that makes you stop.
But on that day, all bets are off.
Yeah.
Anything that you've tried to shield them from up until that point, it's over. They've seen it.
Yeah.
And they're not seeing it in a necessarily educational light at that point, and they might be getting some weird signals.
As a kid, you were a reader. I think I was a reader, and so it was from the time I could pick up a book, it was like, oh, that's interesting.
Yeah,
that was before the internet.
And my parents,
because the land I was from didn't have the internet, even though the internet was a thing.
My parents were very strict when I was really young about what kind of stuff I could consume in terms of media.
We weren't allowed to have a TV.
But books, they didn't care. They're like, oh, reading is good. You should definitely be reading. And they were both like big readers. So we had like this giant library of shit.
Yeah.
And I was like, wow, I could get away with whatever I want in the book world, which actually that may be a pro-parenting strategy, because as long as I thought I was getting away with something, I was reading like crazy. And I think that helped me in life, you know?
Wow, this book is seriously messed up. These characters are just terrible.
Yeah. I got a hold of, what was it, like Tropic of Cancer, Tropic of Capricorn or something like that at one point. And I was like, whoa. Who overlooked this? That I shouldn't have this?
Why is this in the school library? I don't understand.
Anyway, the lesbian couple thing is just, it's ridiculous. But
not as ridiculous as our next story, which we've covered before, but it's always nice to have a new piece of data that confirms what we knew already.
But before we move to this story, here's a question for you. If you're Disney, right, is it more damaging PR-wise to come out and say that couple is not a lesbian and anger one side, or to come out and say, yes, that couple is a lesbian and we celebrate LGBTQ, which is the worst move down to dollars?
Oh, that's an engagement challenge question right there. We want to see the math. Show your work.
But yeah, you're talking about this story, and I think we did cover this maybe before, but someone has once again discovered it.
Turns out that Juggalo makeup blocks facial recognition technology. And so if you're not familiar with Juggalos, as I was not the first time I encountered this story, it's a music thing. And if you are a Juggalo that is a fan, I guess like, you know, a Kiss Army Soldier maybe, and then a Juggalo is kind of like that. Although I guess those are warring factions technically.
You can also be a Juggalette.
Oh, okay.
There's that great YouTube channel where the guy's like, this is for all the Juggalos and Juggalettes. And then he jumps onto something dangerous. And that's all it is.
It's black and white face paint. And so a lot of AI, face recognition technology, has no idea what to do with that. So you are invisible to those technologies.
This is a really well done stock photo. Because I don't know how well you can see that, but there's little versions of them inside these ice creams. Anyway, they point out why this is the case. And I suppose the Violent J version. What's the other guy's name?
I don't know.
Shaggy 2 Dope.
Okay.
Although it's funny because he's Shaggy 2 Dope, I assume that used to like be related to his hair, but now he's bald. So he's not Shaggy at all. Anyway, the AI looks at your jawline, and he is completely like his jaw's down here, but he's redrawn this, so the AI is completely confused by the jawline. So if you're going to do Juggalo paint, now I wonder what the etiquette is. Here's another engagement challenge. Do you mimic your favorite insane clown with your face paint, or do you do your own design?
Well, your own design would be more recognizable once you knew the secret, like on closed circuit television and things like that. Once you found it, it's like, hey, AI, look for this face paint. I think you'd have to change your face paint every day.
But if they all do one of the two, then you're lost in a sea of
Oh, yeah, that would be much better,
yeah. So I don't know exactly how that's supposed to work. This goes out to all the Juggalos and Juggalettes. Tell us how you do it.
Eventually, it's going to be like in a Scanner Darkly, where you have to wear the face mask that just changes your appearance constantly. Or if you prefer, Rorschach from the Watchmen.
But here's the thing. This is only for one kind of facial recognition AI.
Yeah.
For example, the Apple face scan, this would be useless against because it's a 3D representation. It doesn't look at the colors or anything like that.
Or the Chinese gait recognition algorithm.
Yeah. You have to paint one of the two clowns, and then you have to adopt the Juggalo swag, and you all walk the same as well.
Truly, it is the darkest timeline when you show up in all this getup and garb at McDonald's, and the McDonald's AI is like, your usual, sir? And it's the correct usual.
It's your license plate. What do you think the usual for a Juggalo is at McDonald's?
A large black coffee and probably a triple patty, like whatever's the triple patty thing with bacon.
Extra straws,
yeah.
All right, well, that's all we got this week. And
we'll see you next week, probably with Krista, maybe, possibly. Camping, we don't know.
It could be another. We don't even. A cabin was mentioned.
LTX is coming up soon. I'm going to be there.
So the only way you'll find out is if you tune back in, right?